In the summer of 1879, the heart of Zululand beat to the rhythm of war chants, iron-tipped spears, and ancient spirits. 20,000 Zulu warriors, arrayed in ostrich feathers and leopard pelts, gathered under the scorching sky. At their front stood their king, Cetshwayo, not just a ruler, but the last great shield of indigenous power in southern Africa. I have not gone over the seas to look for the white man, yet he has come into my land, and I would not be surprised if they take our wives, our cattle, our land. Now they want to take me. What shall I do? Said King Cetshwayo. These were not empty words. The land they defended was soaked in ancestral power, where bravery was prayer, cattle were currency, and the slaying of a bull was a warrior's rite of passage. By the late 19th century, the British Empire had grown into a global juggernaut. But in its relentless expansion, the line between diplomacy and destruction often blurred. Southern Africa was no exception. Diamonds had been discovered. Gold lay waiting. But between the empire and its spoils stood the Zulu kingdom, proud, defiant, and sovereign. Sir Henry Bartle Frere, the British High Commissioner for Southern Africa, was convinced that peace could only come through conquest. Without the approval of London, he manufactured a war. He issued King Cetshwayo an ultimatum he knew could not be accepted. Disband your military, dissolve your way of life, and submit to British rule. It was not a negotiation. It was a provocation. In January 1879, Lord Chelmsford led over 15,000 British and colonial troops across the Buffalo River into Zululand. The Redcoats marched in neat formations, rifles polished and boots gleaming, convinced they would humble the Zulus with ease. They had no idea what awaited them. To understand the strength of the Zulu army, one must return to the days of King Shaka, the architect of Zulu unity. In the early 1800s, Shaka took a scattered network of clans and forged them into one of the most formidable military systems on the continent. Boys became warriors through years of rigorous training. They learned to move in silence, to strike with precision, and to kill without hesitation. Shaka reimagined warfare. He replaced long-throwing spears with short stabbing assegais called EKLWA, owing to the sound the assegais make when ripped out of the body of the enemy. He also invented the horns of the bull tactic, a maneuver that encircled and crushed enemies from all sides. The chest pinned them down, the horns flanked. The loins, held in reserve, delivered the final blow. This was not just a strategy. It was cultural alchemy, transforming loyalty into a weapon and obedience into overwhelming force. Cetshwayo inherited this legacy, and now it would be tested against the world's most powerful army. January 22nd, 1879. Beneath the shadow of Isandlwana mountain, the British established a sprawling camp. It was an uneasy calm. The soldiers rested, drilled, and waited for orders. But Lord Chelmsford was impatient. Hearing reports of Zulu movements to the east, he made a fateful decision. He split his forces, taking half the army with him to chase a phantom threat. Left behind were fewer than 1,800 men. No trenches, no barricades, no scouts posted far enough to see what lay beyond the hills. The air was thick with tension, the kind that precedes disaster, and disaster was coming. Just beyond the ridge, concealed by valleys and thickets, 25,000 Zulu warriors were preparing to strike. They had marched for days. They had fasted. They had purified themselves in ritual. They were ready to avenge their king and protect their land. Shortly after midday, the earth trembled. A low hum rose from the hills, a thunder not of weather, but of warriors. The Zulu impis surged forward in formation, a black wave cresting over the valley. The British line held at first. Volley after volley of Martini Henry rifle fire mowed down the front ranks. The air stank of cordite and sweat. But the Zulus pressed on, undeterred, leaping over fallen comrades, spears high, eyes ablaze. And then the unthinkable. The ammunition supply broke down. Confusion reigned. Boxes were mislabeled. Reserve cartridges failed to reach the front lines in time. A gap opened. The Zulus poured through. Steel met flesh. Bayonets tangled with spears. Men screamed, clawed, and died. The horns had encircled. The loins had been unleashed. Isandlwana became a graveyard. As the sun dipped low, the battlefield fell silent, save for the groans of the dying. Blood soaked the golden grass. British soldiers, so certain of victory that morning, now lay lifeless, stripped of uniform and dignity. The Zulus, following sacred custom, disemboweled the dead. It was not an act of cruelty, but of spiritual mercy, to release trapped souls, to avoid haunting. 1,300 of Britain's finest were gone. The Zulu victory at Isandlwana was total, staggering, and unprecedented. For Lord Chelmsford, returning to camp hours later, it was a reckoning. His arrogance, his underestimation of the enemy, had led to ruin. The news hit Britain like a thunderclap. For the first time, a native force had annihilated a modern British army in open battle. The public was stunned. Parliament was furious. Rorke's Drift, where a small garrison of 150 men held off over 3,000 Zulus, was seized upon by newspapers as a tale of valor, a bandage for a wounded empire. But back in Zululand, Cetshwayo continued to seek peace. He sent envoys. He pleaded for negotiations. He wanted no more bloodshed. The British wanted the surrender. His requests were ignored. Now, the war would escalate. By July, a second invasion force had been assembled. Over 25,000 strong, better equipped, better led. And Lord Chelmsford, still in command, knew his time was running out. He needed a final victory before his replacement arrived. The target was Ulundi, the royal capital of Zululand, the heart of the kingdom. On July 4th, the Zulu army made its last stand. 10,000 warriors rose from the tall grass, chants filling the sky. The horns of the bull spread wide. They charged. But this time, the British were ready. Formed in a fortified square, flanked by Gatling guns and artillery, they unleashed a storm of fire. It was not a battle. It was a massacre. No Zulu reached the British line. Ulundi was burned, the royal homestead reduced to ash. I was king of the Zulus. I did not go to the English. They came to me. I defended my land. I was taken, and here I remain until the Queen sees justice. Said King Cetshwayo, imprisoned in Cape Town, later paraded in London like a curiosity, Cetshwayo was eventually released in 1883, only to find his kingdom shattered. The British had carved Zululand into rival territories, pitting chief against chief, tribe against tribe. The old unity was gone. In 1884, Cetshwayo died in exile. Some say poison, others heartbreak. The Zulu kingdom, once the most formidable native force in southern Africa, had fallen. The Zulu kingdom did not survive, but the spirit of its people did. In language, in dance, in song, and in memory. The tale of Isandlwana is not only a chronicle of war, it is a testament to what it means to resist, to fight, and for one blazing moment, to defeat an empire. The dead are never dead. They live on in stories. Thank you for joining me on this journey of African history, philosophy, and mythology. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe for for more videos on African history, philosophy, and mythology.